What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down some very important technicals to be watching for, what's going on with all these different charts, and what news just came out that's affecting the whole markets. But before I do anything like this, though, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends very soon, and it's in just about 6 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market and Tesla. So it's very important to note that the market is in a very, very big free fall right now. It's continuing to sell off very hard, and there's not really much sign of a bounce just yet. And the market's continuing to look weak after the big changes to monetary policy from the Fed that were announced. So I want to talk about some big data and the news before I talk about the charts. Just as a reminder, we had initial jobless claims that came out this morning, and they were actually quite lower than expected at 201,000 versus the consensus of 225,000. This tells us that the overall job sector is still a little bit stronger than expected, and this contributed to why the market was selling off because it incentivizes the Fed to be even more hawkish. Now, on top of that, I just wanted to mention that there's not a whole lot of data coming out for the rest of the day. 30 minutes after the market opens, we have the existing home sales data coming out. I don't think it's going to affect the market much, but just to be safe, just have that in the back of your mind. And besides that, we just have some Fed speakers for tomorrow, and that's pretty much it with the PMI data for tomorrow. The market's going to be kind of clean of data for pretty much the rest of the day besides new home sales. For the news coming out, you can see that the Fed had a very, very big effect. Now the market is moving. They indicated that another rate hike is on the table. And on top of that, they may be having to raise rates for even more and then hold them up for longer than expected going into 2024 and 2025. The Fed also changed their projections, so this is once again not what the market was expecting. On top of this, we saw that some news about how Apple wanted to capitalize on the buzz when consumers were flocking to trading apps like Robinhood. It was working with Goldman Sachs to start an investing feature, but that ended up not really working out. So that was something that was very important. We will see if this ends up launching in the future and if anything changes. We also have some new IPOs. IPOs are going like crazy for the week. We also had Clavio debuting just a couple of, or I think it was just yesterday. It jumped like 9% on the initial public offering. And then don't forget about the strikes that are still going on. This is going to be important for other companies. But anyways, besides that, the bigger piece of news is going to be the Federal Reserve, which is still affecting the markets. Stocks are selling off as Powell has crushed their rate cut hopes for the year. Once again, very, very important stuff, thanks to the fact that inflation is starting to uptick quite a bit. All right, so anyways, now let's break down what's going on with the charts. Looking at Tesla, we can see that this thing is trying to hold around this 256 area, getting very close to its 200 EMA on the 4-hour time frame. On the 30-minute time frame, it's looking relatively weak, however, just continuing to sell off below every single one of its EMAs. So on the 4-hour, I find this very important, very telling. We're going to be watching very close to where 254.5 happens to be. We have some support there, but it may not hold Tesla up because we have this big gap. Tesla's going to likely fill this gap and make its way down to about 250 very soon. So watch for it to attempt to either bounce off the 200 EMA, then start selling off, or it could just break right through it and continue to sell off. As of right now, there's been almost no bounce. It's just continuing to look weak with this head and shoulders like pattern. So we could see Tesla begin to sell off towards 250 flat. On SPY, this is looking relatively weak. We're currently at 434. We broke below 436, which is very significant. And if anything is looking very weak, it looks like this thing is going to head towards this 433 area. Watch and see how it reacts to 433. If it fails to bounce off that, 431 to 430 is on the table, right? And it looks weak. It's continuing to sell off. Not much of a bounce at all. It's continuing to just break these new lows. So 433 is on the table. If not 431, still looks more bearish. Now, that's what's going on for SPY. Looking at Aapl, as expected, Aapl is continuing to sell off. We were talking about this thing hitting 173.5. We're actually at 173.9. I could see this dropping a little bit lower to 173.5 before some buyers try to step in. But if they fail to step in around here, this thing could just continue sinking towards 171. Looking relatively weak on Aapl. The QQQ is also looking kind of weak. When you look at the QQQ, it's continuing to sell off. We're at 360 now. If this thing continues to fall from there, we're gonna be watching 358 as the next critical support. If that breaks, then 354. It has broken below 366, which is very important, and also below 361. So it's looking more bearish. Make sure you watch those levels carefully. Still continuing to sell off. No sign of a bounce just yet. Looking at Nvda, this thing is coming down pretty hard. We were talking about this potentially happening. We're going to be watching 410 very, very carefully. Not to mention 403, which is where we have this imbalance. 403 is going to be a key level for Nvidia. When we zoom out of the chart, it's very important to note that Nvidia is still technically on a massive uptrend, even if we do see it continuing to sell off here. And we're going to be watching to see if this support ends up holding it. We're going to be watching to see if that ends up being the case or not. If anything, I would just be very patient with this and see how it reacts to support around this area, around this 403 area. If we end up breaking below 410, we are very oversold, but we'll have to wait and see because there's no sign of a bounce just yet. Moving forward, AMD is looking relatively weak. If we look at AMD, it's currently at about, let's just double check this. It's currently in the 90s right now. I think it just broke below 100. So I think it's in 97 point something, 97.3, 97.8. So, this looks more bearish. We're going to be watching this get very close to this 97.5 support. If that fails us, we're going to be watching the next support historically, which is 95. Still looks more bearish, just like Nvidia. The VIX is continuing to break out, and one thing that's not a good sign for the markets is the daily chart of the VIX is currently above this very, very critical level. I think my chart went a little back, so give me 1 second to move it forward. But basically, when the VIX is below the 50 EMA, this tends to be a signal that the market is once again in a bullish state. If we're above the 50, then we tend to be a lot more bearish. And as of right now, we are looking more and more bearish because when I zoom into the VIX for right now, things are just looking more and more bearish, like right here. We are currently below this key level. So this is very, very important and worth noting. We're looking weaker on a day-to-day basis. So we're now holding up above this very critical EMA right here. This is very important to note because once I find this, because we're holding up in the market's likely establishing a major downtrend because of this. We're currently above these important EMAs like the 50. So that is once again a bearish signal, and it's continuing to break out. On the daily chart, the dollar is continuing to break out, looking bullish, which is bearish for the markets, and we're just continuing to see the markets selling off. Same thing with Meta. It's continuing to break down. We're going to be watching 295. That's going to be key support. If that fails us, this thing has more potential to come down towards this 290 support right about here. You're going to be watching this all very carefully. Anyways, guys, market looks bearish. No true sign of a clean bounce just yet. Continuing to sell off. Yes, we are. And we're just going to be watching this very, very carefully. All right. So do what you have to do, guys. Remain calm, cool, and collected. I'll see you guys very, very soon. Make sure you watch these supports. And please take care. Thank you for listening. Have a good one. And peace out.